Some of you may have heard it before because at some point it became an internet sensation, so if you have, you know where I'm going with this. If not, feel free to just answer it in your head. You don't have to say anything aloud. So there was this girl, and at the funeral of her mother, she met a man she'd never seen before and fell head over heels for him right then and there. She thought this guy was her soulmate. A few days later, she murdered her sister. Why did the girl kill her sister? If you said something along the lines of because she was hoping that the man would be at the other funeral, you're right. You're also, according to the riddle, a psychopath. But I wouldn't get too hung up on this because this riddle was found to be totally bogus. According to Dr. Kevin Dunn's findings, he actually went around and asked different psychopaths this riddle, and none of them came up with the correct answer. Psychopathy is a lot more complex than just a simple answer to a riddle. So today I'm going to be giving you guys a little bit information about psychopaths and sociopaths, as much as I can in a 7 to 8 minute long informative speech. So a lot of people think that if someone is a sociopath or a psychopath, it means that they're clinically insane. That's not actually the case. Sociopathy and psychopathy are actually characterized as antisocial personality disorders. Dr. Steve Bressert defines this as a long-standing pattern of disregard for other people's rights, often crossing the line and violating those rights, on an article that he wrote on PsychCentral.com. So while it is harder for these people to have a normal life, it is possible as long as they get the right diagnosis and the right treatment for their conditions. Psychopathy and sociopathy are a lot more about long-standing behavioral patterns as opposed to complete insanity. So another thing that people think is that sociopathy and psychopathy are the same thing. There's been a lot of debate in the medical world on whether or not these two terms can be used interchangeably, but Dr. Scott A. Bond wrote an article about why they shouldn't. He said that the main things they have in common are that both of them lack a disregard for social norms and the rights of others. They also usually have a failure to feel remorse or guilt, and they usually tend to display violent behaviors. So these are sort of the cores of both disorders, but when you look at the differences, they're a lot more vast than they are similar. So he says that sociopaths tend to be nervous and easily agitated. They're volatile and unstable, so they're prone to emotional outbursts. They're usually uneducated and can't hold down steady jobs. While it's challenging for sociopaths, it is possible for them to form legitimate attachments to individuals and even groups of people. They really lack an understanding of social norms, and they don't care enough to make an attempt to understand them and make themselves fit them, so they can kind of seem disturbed to people who are around them. When sociopaths commit crimes, they're pretty sloppy and unorganized because they tend to not be premeditated and they don't really think anything through. Later on, Bond goes to state the characteristics of psychopaths, which in my opinion are the scarier of the two. So psychopaths can't form any legitimate human connection, but they have a charismatic personality which draws other people to trust them very easily. They learn to mimic human emotions and social norms so they can manipulate other people into thinking that there's nothing wrong with them. More often than not, psychopaths are actually married with a family, and even the family and kids don't know that anything's wrong. They tend to be well educated and can hold steady and even high-paying jobs at times. Really, really smart psychopaths can make excellent white-collar criminals and con artists because they have a very calm and charismatic nature. But then not only the main characteristics are different, it was also found in a twin study by multiple professors at the University of Minnesota that what causes the disorder actually differs. So sociopathy usually stems from nurture, which is how a person is brought up, and psychopathy stems from nature, which is a person's genetics. So the causes for the two are completely different. So then here I have an example of a famous sociopath and a famous psychopath. So Will Cornick was a 16-year-old boy who got sentenced to life in prison for brutally murdering his Spanish teacher. It was said that one day he came up behind her and stabbed her in the throat 7 times, then proceeded to sit down next to his friend on the bench and say, "Good times." When authorities went to research all of this, they found that he had a long-standing irrational hatred for the teacher. She never really did anything that would make him dislike her, but he just hated her and made plenty of empty threats about wanting her dead, but never actually went through with it until he did, and then it was sloppy and unorganized, and he was caught right away because it was a spur of the moment. Then we have Ted Bundy, who is probably one of the most notorious serial killers of all time. Ted Bundy would lure women to come home with him using his charismatic personality and his good looks. Once he had them at his will, He proceeded to rape them and then brutally murder them to death, continuing to sleep with their dead bodies. Once Ted Bundy was caught, he was charged with 36 counts of murder, but it's actually believed that he killed somewhere around 100 plus women. There is no tangible evidence to back up the claim, however. So, while this topic can get a little bit morbid, as a psych major, I've always found it really interesting that someone with such a lack of emotion and empathy could do this to another human being just because they felt like it. If that alone isn't enough to make this presentation prevalent in your lives, it's important to note that psychopaths and sociopaths make up about 3 to 5% of the general population, and men make up about 70% of that 3 to 5. So the disorder is a lot more common than people like to think. It's important for us to know signs in case you see someone acting a little strange, because you never know. Maybe the person sitting next to you is a psychopath in disguise.
What?